Hello everybody, it's Dave Fry with the space between, trying to do the last video series on depression. And I want you to know that I take depression very, very seriously. I'm not trying to make light of depression in any possible way because it's very dear to my heart, because I've lived many, many decades within the realm of depression. Um, but But being on this side, or in this space where I am now, compared to where I was prior in a previous story in my life, I really want to be able to share this with all of you in hopes, and hope is the key word here, that we all have hope within us. It's a bright, bright light. And sometimes it may dim, and sometimes it may even flicker, but it never goes out. I just want to share this with people that may be suffering, maybe feeling like they're stuck. And I do want to tell you that it's challenging for me. A couple ways of doing this. One is creating these videos. I could write down every word I say and use a teleprompter and then read it back to you. I could do that. And I've done that a couple times. And that's fun. I like it. But then there's times where it's like this, where it's just like, I am actually waiting for what shows up from within me. And that's something that's hard to explain, and it seems like it gets deep really quick. And one thing that I find is fascinating is trying to describe this understanding of how our thinking works in a very simple way. And it can be challenging to make it simple, even though it is simple. Literally, I'm waiting for the words to show up. I didn't write anything down. There's nothing but formless energy converting to form. I sound like a Star Trek episode. We should shove in a Star Trek clip right here, because, or Star Wars even, because if you think about Yoda and Obi-Wan and even Luke later on, their wisdom and their clarity, they show up and they talk about a force that Obi-Wan at one point is asking Luke to let go of everything, trust yourself, let go and trust yourself. That's a huge part of this understanding. That's enormous. But at the same time, knowing who yourself is, knowing that you are this infinite possibilities. And I want to talk about infinite possibilities for a second. I also want to question the entire Western standard philosophies on therapy. I want to question all of that. And I can't do that all in one quick video. So I do break it up. Hang on one second. Infinite possibilities. We've heard that a million times, haven't we? Well, I know I have, because I love researching. I love researching philosophy. I love researching ancient philosophy. Even today, out of randomly, I just looked up, what's the earliest written story? What's the first story that was ever written down on paper? And as far as they know, as far as they've come up with, it's about 9,000 years ago. And that's not to talk about the stories that people shared with each other, but maybe the very first written one. 9,000 years ago. Isn't that amazing? Hang on one second. I'm going to get back to infinite possibilities. So throughout all this research that I do when it comes to depression or anxiety or habits or just the times that we get caught up in trying to figure out how this thing works is a fascinating, endless experience, and I'll never get the answer. It's impossible. No one will, right? Come on, this thing is huge. There's so many synapses in that thing firing all the time. Have you seen that picture where they take the colorful photograph of the synapses of the brain and they compare it to the energies that they found within that's cruising through the universe right now? They're identical. Back to infinite possibilities. The fascinating thing about infinite possibilities, and I've said it many times, is that what I'm referring to is any particular situation where thought shows up. Let's see, how do I word this? Hang on one second. My mind and my mind and I know that tomorrow, today's Sunday, tomorrow I have a dentist appointment at 1 o'clock. My mind and we're on agreement on that. But this dude up here has come up with like 5,000 different scenarios of why we shouldn't go. And it's like, isn't that incredible? How could the being that I am and this mind up here be different? How is that possible? How is it that there's something that's a reality, I guess, that there's an appointment, so that's the reality, and then it would take nothing just to get up and go to the appointment. But for whatever reason, there's a whole other story, not just one story, but multiple stories going on within this guy that says otherwise. It says otherwise. It's got something going on. And it's so fascinating to witness that. And I think where the infinite possibilities come in is that in any given scenario, no matter what it is, I mean, literally, it doesn't even have to be a big event. It could be a tiny event, or it could be, and tiny and big, those are kind of just random thoughts, whether they're big or small, that doesn't make any difference. It's something that like the mind is constantly prepping or preparing or protecting. Maybe it's protecting the being. I don't know exactly how it works. I know how thinking works. I know the flow of thinking. I know that as my thoughts come up, that there's a beginning thought and it goes through a story, and when it finishes, another thought shows up and maybe it starts a story and it moves down the line and it finishes that story. There's a space, the space between. And then there's another thought and perhaps another story or another scenario of why I shouldn't go. The greatest thing about witnessing that is that there's a really, hang on one second, eye-opening enlightenment right in there. There's an enlightenment that says, hey, guess what? Guess what comes along with the package deal when you're born? You get this thing up here. So the brain has a couple parts in there. You know, it's got some amygdalas and it's got some higla. It has a lizard brain in there. It's a real small, tiny little bit ping pong sized doodad that's been with us for thousands of years. It's kind of up in there somewhere. Some people call it the lizard brain. Other people call it the small mind. And then we got the big mind. We got that giant machine, software, computer, hardware, drive, external, internal drive, whatever you want to call it, the motherboard up in there that's constantly firing and figuring out stuff. We got that thing going on. It's interesting to think about the possibilities of something spiritual within us that lives with or is a part of this beautiful creation that we are, and yet sometimes there's a conflict. And I think what's amazing about the conflicts, it's like someone waving to you, or it's like a sign, or and it's a message, kind of, in a way. It's like telling you, hey, my mind is really busy right now. I've got a lot of stuff going on, but you're perfectly okay. You're perfectly fine. The dentist appointment isn't till tomorrow. Right now, you're sitting here in front of a computer making a video, and you love making videos. So there is no problem. There's no problem at all. But now if I go back and kind of sit with all of these stories and all of these thoughts and start to think, wow, could some of this be true? Could some of this be real? Is the brain trying to protect me from something? No, it's not trying to protect you from anything. But its natural function is to protect you, not from the dentist, but from some other danger that was out there 200,000 years ago. But it's still there. It's still that little ping pong brain in there that wants to protect us from everything. And that's where so many of our thoughts show up. They show up from our big mind and our little mind. And our big mind is infinite possibilities.
Infinite possibilities.
Hang on one second. Remember the hallway in The Matrix? I'm sure you've all watched The Matrix 1,000 times like I have. Remember the hallway that they go into? He opens this door. It's like perfect timing. They got to be at this doorway. To get into the hallway, they got to be at this door at a perfect time. Everything has to line up absolutely perfectly. And then he opens the door, and they're both in the hallway together. And they look down that way, and it's infinite hallways. It's one hallway, but infinite doors, and they're all the same door. And you look this way, and it's infinite hallway that way, and they're all the same doors. And I love that metaphor of life. It's like, wow, isn't that amazing that we have infinite possibilities constantly around us. We can do anything we want to do. We open up one of those doors, we're in a whole new part of life. It's incredible. It's fascinating. We close that door, we move on to the next door. Even though the doors are identical, they look the same. We could be going in the same door again, but instead we have infinite possibilities. So I think that's where I kind of see it like that metaphor of the hallways, but I also see that when my mind is coming up with scenarios for the dentist, I think there's infinite possibilities there too. It's like, hopefully sooner or later it runs out of things to say. Like it's going to take a breath, like it's going to calm down for just a minute, and that space between the stories is going to widen a little bit more. The space between. And it's going to keep widening and widening, or it's just going to run out of things to say. I like that too. I think that if when I say we, those people who are my brothers and sisters in this world, who are caught up, who are suffering, if we could see that we are okay, but we also have something within us that's running through a software program of thousands of scenarios. And yet we have that wisdom and that innate clarity that's within us that we know. We can go, yeah. I understand there's infinite possibilities and 1,000 scenarios that you're coming up with, but I'm going to the dentist. Are you coming with me? If you guys have any questions or you want to make... Hang on one second. If you guys have any questions, or if you'd like to leave any comments, or you know anybody who would be... Hang on one second. I thank you for your time, your patience, and just being awesome. This could be the last video series on depression.